Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. Every parent in the world prays for just one thing, for their child to always be good, happy, and live a long life. For parents, nothing matters more than their children. But what would you say if some parents have been praying the same prayer every single morning, afternoon, and evening for the past 11 years? And that prayer is, I love my son immensely. I love him deeply, but God, please take his life. There's a family in Delhi, a mother, a father, a younger son, and an elder son. For the last 11 years, these parents have been praying daily for their elder son's death. They love him dearly, yet still wish for his death. It's been a long time, but even God had answered that prayer. Death hasn't come. So now they've knocked on the door of the court, because while prayers can be offered, sometimes they aren't enough. They couldn't take their son's life with their own hands. How could any parent do that? So they went to court and appealed that the court should make a decision and legally allow a way to end their son's life. In other words, that the court should take his life. There was a long debate over this in court. A bench of judges in the Delhi High Court heard the case, and on July 8, 2024, the High Court delivered its verdict. The court said that our Constitution, Article 21, gives every individual the right to live with dignity. Therefore, we cannot grant death to anyone. So, even though you want your son to die, we still cannot grant him death. Your son will remain alive. And that in itself is painful, that despite all his suffering, he will continue to breathe, but he will live. The law cannot take his life. But this is just one side of the story. There are many questions in this entire case. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. The year was 2013. A family was living in Delhi. The head of the family, Ashok Rana, used to work at a catering company. Their elder son, Harish, wanted to become an engineer. He was bright and good at his studies. He got admitted to Punjab University for civil engineering and began his B.Tech there. The family lived in Delhi, but since the admission was in Punjab University, Mohali, Harish moved to Mohali and started living there as a paying guest. Everything was going well. His parents were dreaming of the day their son would become an engineer and bring stability to their home. But then, one day, something unexpected happened. Harish's room was on the 4th floor of the PG, and suddenly he fell from the balcony of the 4th floor. He fell and suffered a severe head injury. He was immediately rushed to PGI Chandigarh Hospital. Since he fell from the 4th floor, a police case was also registered and an FIR was filed. But his condition didn't improve. He was nearly in a coma. There were several tests, including X-rays, and the injury was found to be critical. Despite all efforts and treatment at PGI Chandigarh, Harish's condition did not improve. His parents became extremely worried. The doctors then advised transferring him from Chandigarh to Delhi's renowned All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He was treated at there, but there was no improvement. Still holding on to hope, the parents kept taking him from one hospital to another. From there, they went to Lok Nayak Jayaprakash Narayan Hospital in Delhi, then to Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, and many other hospitals as well. But Harish's condition never improved. He was alive, but only breathing, nothing more. He was unaware of everything, sitting like a living corpse. Time kept passing. Eventually, the doctors said there was no longer any hope for recovery, but his breathing didn't stop. Legally, he wasn't dead. But on the other hand, no parent can watch their child slowly die. They spent all their life savings on their son. They had a 3-story house in Delhi. When the hospital expenses became too much, they brought Harish back home. They hired a nurse to take care of him, paying her around 27,000 rupees a month at the time, while Mr. Rana's own salary was 28,000 rupees. On top of that were expenses for medicines, food, and daily care. And whenever Harish's condition worsened, they had to rush him to the hospital again. But the alley where their house was located was so narrow that an ambulance couldn't even reach their doorstep. It was always a huge struggle. They had to carry him out themselves every time. Eventually, due to the ambulance issue, they even sold their house and moved elsewhere, just so an ambulance could at least reach their front door. They continued his treatment. Time kept passing, but his condition never improved. All the doctors, all the hospitals, eventually gave up. They said keeping him in the hospital would only increase your bill. He would just occupy a bed and nothing else could be done. His body had become completely disabled. He couldn't move at all, just lying on the bed. All essential functions had to be managed on the bed itself. A urine bag was attached to help him pass urine, a stool bag for bowel movements, and food was given through a feeding tube. So the feeding tube remained attached to the bed, and the cost of the nurse was so high that they couldn't manage it anymore. Eventually, they let the nurse go. Now, the responsibility of caregiving fell entirely on Ashok Rana and his wife, Nirmala Devi. Their entire home became devoted to taking care of one sick person, all in the hope that maybe, just maybe, a miracle would happen. But the doctors had already ruled that out, and no miracle came. Time kept passing. Then Ashok Rana eventually retired. After retirement, the salary stopped, and the only income was a pension, 3,500 rupees a month. The younger son was very small at the time, so there was no hope for him to have a job yet. All the responsibility fell on Mr. Rana's shoulders. No one helped him back then. The government had initially given 50,000 rupees, but with such a long illness, that money was nothing. After retirement, taking care of that living corpse at home, meeting all his needs and providing food and drink just to keep him alive required a lot of hard work. Near Rana's house, there was a ground where children used to come and play games on Saturdays and Sundays. One day, he saw the children playing games. He made sprouts and sandwiches at home and took them to sell. On Saturdays and Sundays, he earned some money from this, which went toward Harish's expenses because medicine and all other things were needed. He wasn't dead yet. He was still alive, so his needs had to be met. From medicines to physiotherapy and everything else, life went on. Slowly, Harish became nothing more than a skeleton lying on the bed for many years. For a long time, doctors neither declared him alive nor dead. He was completely unaware of the world, just lying on the bed, caught between life and death. The only thing keeping him alive was his heartbeat, nothing else. Since he was confined to the bed continuously, strange bacteria and infections began to develop. The parents were devastated. Their whole world turned upside down. They couldn't go anywhere or do anything. They didn't have enough money to hire a nurse or even rent a hospital bed. They begged for help everywhere, but no help came. Now Harish was at home with his parents taking care of him. Their younger son was growing up, and before his time, he wanted to help his family, especially his bedridden living corpse of a brother. And finally, before time, he grew up. He got a job, and with his income, the household expenses started running somewhat smoothly. But Harish's condition showed no improvement. Not knowing what else to do, in 2021, the family made a decision after every doctor and every medical board had given their answers, that they didn't know if he would ever get better, but no one could say when his breathing would stop. His suffering was different, and seeing that suffering made the parents even more restless. When they saw his suffering, the parents began praying again, saying, "Oh God, please take my son away because we can no longer bear to see his pain." His suffering was so intense that even though they were alive, they felt like they were dying. But their prayers didn't work. Many years passed, and then someone told them about the concept of euthanasia. So they thought, why not go to court and ask for a way to end his suffering? Both parents went to court on Harish's behalf. They hired a lawyer and said that for the past 11 years, their son, now around 30 to 35 years old, has been worse than dead, even though he's technically alive. They said they can no longer bear to see his pain. Every day they pray for his death, but it never comes. So they requested the court to grant permission for euthanasia. After a long legal debate, the Delhi High Court gave its decision on July 8th that the right to life is granted by our constitution, but we cannot give anyone the right to die. After this verdict, the parents had mixed emotions, sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. They were relieved because just imagining what it would feel like if the court had said, "Yes, you can end his life," that thought alone made their hearts tremble. Because to actually carry it out, whether through a doctor or by stopping medication and letting him die on his own, would take unimaginable courage. Why? Because they knew exactly what they would be doing. Even though he has been lying like a corpse for years, his breathing continues. So when the court's decision came, they were left in a strange emotional state. Should they feel sadness or relief? Now, regarding Harish, the court referred to previous Supreme Court guidance, which stated that Article 21 of our Constitution grants the right to life. But the court also acknowledged that a person should have the right to die, that a person deserves to die with dignity. It shouldn't be that someone simply says it and then their life is taken. They said, suppose in the future there's an elderly or sick person in a home who has wealth, property, or a will, then it's possible that people might go to doctors or medical boards, create false medical certificates, claiming the person can't recover and has no chance of survival, and say we should be allowed to end their life. They warned that if this were allowed, India would be flooded with such cases. So the Supreme Court's concern was very valid. But in this case, the court also said, we understand the pain of the parents. We understand what it means to care for a child lying on a bed for 11 years. We understand how the whole atmosphere of the house must be affected, and what kind of agony that child is enduring. But still, the court said, we cannot give permission, because if Article 21 gives the right to life, it also includes the right to die, but with dignity, and even then, the legal framework doesn't support this. So the court denied the request, and just like God didn't answer their prayers, the court didn't either. Harish is still lying on that bed. His younger brother has started working, but saying, hearing, or reading about it from afar can never compare to the pain of the parents and brother who live it every day, waking up, eating, sleeping under the same roof, moving around Harish's bed, watching him, feeling his heartbeat, living the pain he cannot express, and bearing it with every breath. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable.